Hi, this is John at The Missing Reel. Here on YouTube, we would like you to subscribe, like, share, and comment. And don't forget to ring the bell. Thanks. Hi, this is John Lovett at Two Script Guys with another in a series of little known and little read today. The author today is an author that we mostly know as James Triptree Jr., who was born Alice Bradley Sheldon. Yes, she was a woman. She was a science fiction and fantasy author, and it was not publicly known until 1977 that James Triptree was the pen name of a woman which she used from 1967 until her death. From 1974 to 1985, she was also occasionally known as Raccoona Sheldon. Triptree was inducted into the Science Fiction Hall of Fame in 2012. Triptree's debut story collection, 10,000 Light Years from Home, was published in 1973, and her first novel, Up the Walls of the World, was published in 1978. Her other works include the 1973 novelette, The Women Men Don't See, the 1974 novella, The Girl Who Was Plugged In, and the 1976 novella, Houston, Houston, Do You Read? The 1985 novel, Brightness Falls from the Air, and the 1974 short story, Her Smoke Rose Up Forever. Alice Hastings Bradley came from a family in Hyde Park, Chicago, United States. Her father was Herbert Edwin Bradley, a lawyer naturalist, and her mother was Mary Hastings Bradley, a prolific writer of fiction and travel books. From an early age, she traveled with her parents, and in 1921 and 1922, the family made a first trip to Central Africa. During these trips, she played the role of the perfect daughter, willing to be carried across Africa like a parcel, always neatly dressed and well behaved, a credit to her mother. This later contributed to her short story, The Women Men Don't See. Between trips to Africa, Bradley attended school in Chicago. Bradley was encouraged by her mother to seek a career, but her mother also hoped that she would get married and settle down. So in 1934, at age 19, she met Bill Davy and eloped to marry him. She had dropped out of Sarah Lawrence College to do so. They moved to Berkeley, California, where they took classes, and Davy encouraged her to pursue art, but ultimately divorced in 1940 at 25. After her divorce, Bradley joined the Air Force Intelligence. In 1945, at the close of the war, while she was on assignment in Paris, she married her second husband, Huntington D. Sheldon, known as Ting. They worked for the CIA. In 1955, she left the CIA and studied for her Bachelor of Arts degree in American University, 1957-1959. She received a doctorate from George Washington University in experimental psychology in 1967. She wrote her doctoral dissertation on the responses of animals to novel stimuli in differing environments. During this time, she wrote and submitted a few science fiction stories under the name James Triptree Jr. in order to protect her academic reputation. Bradley discovered science fiction in 1924 when she read her first issue of Weird Tales, but she didn't write any herself until years later. Unsure of what to do with her new degree and her new an old career, she began to write science fiction. She adopted the pseudonym of James Triptree Jr. in 1967. The name Triptree comes from a branded jar of marmalade, and the Jr. was her husband's idea. In an interview, she said, "A male's name seemed like good camouflage. I had the feeling that a man would slip by less observed. I've had too many experiences in my life being the first woman in some damn occupation." She also made the choice to start writing science fiction because she herself was interested in and was surprised to find that her stories were immediately accepted for publication and quickly became popular. Her first published short story was Birth of a Salesman in March 1968, Magazine of Analog Science, Fact and Fiction, edited by John Campbell. 3 more followed that year in If and Fantastic. Other pen names that she used include Alice Hastings Bradley, Mary Alice Davy, Allie B. Sheldon, and Dr. Alice B. Sheldon, and Rukuna Sheldon. And no, she had no relationship to the Sheldon that we've all come to know and love. Triptree never made any public appearances, but she did correspond regularly with fans and other science fiction authors through the mail. When asked for biological details, Triptree, or Sheldon, was forthcoming in everything but her gender. According to her biographer, Julie Phillips, no one had ever spoken with or seen the owner of the voice. He wrote letters, warm, frank, funny letters to other writers, editors, and science fiction fans. In her letters to fellow writers such as Ursula K. Le Guin and Joanna Russ, she would present herself as a feminist man. However, Sheldon did not present herself as a male in person. Writing was a way to escape a male-dominated society. Themes Triptree explored in the short stories later collected in her Smoke Rise Up Forever. One story in particular offers an excellent illustration of these themes. Houston, Houston, Do You Read follows a group of astronauts who discover a future Earth whose male population has been wiped out. The remaining females have learned to get along fine in their absence. After Sheldon's identity was revealed, several prominent science fiction authors suffered some embarrassment. Bob Silverberg, who had argued that Triptree would not be a woman from the evidence of her stories, provided a postscript to his introduction to the second edition of Triptree's Warm Worlds and Otherwise, published in 1979. Harlan Ellison had introduced Triptree's story in anthology Again Dangerous Visions with the opinion that Kate Willem is the woman to beat this year, but Triptree is the man. Sheldon continued writing under the Triptree pen name for another decade. In the last years of her life, she suffered from depression and heart problems, while her husband began to lose his eyesight, becoming effectively completely blind in 1986. In 1976, the then 61-year-old Sheldon wrote to Silverberg expressing her desire to end her life while she was still able-bodied and active. She said that she was reluctant to act upon this attention, as she did not want to leave her husband behind and could not bring herself to kill him. Later, she suggested to her husband that they make a suicide pact together when their health began to fail. So on July 21st, 1977, she wrote in her diary, Ting agreed to consider suicide in 4 to 5 years. Years later, on March 19th, years later, on May 19th, 1987, Sheldon shot her husband and then herself. She telephoned her attorney after the first shooting to announce her actions. They were found dead, hand in hand, in bed in their Virginia home. And that's the story of James Triptree Jr., or Alice Bradley Sheldon. James Triptree Jr. was an excellent author, and although her stories were not included in the New Dangerous Visions, the last Dangerous Visions book, which was recently published, she was included in the Again Dangerous Visions book. She deserves our reading of her material, and she deserves our attention. So, thank you.